Well, hello, LinkedIn, X, Twitch, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. My name is Frank Lavinia, and let me throw that up there. There we go. My name is Frank Lavinia, and I am the source of the name franksworld.com. I think the correct term is eponymous. Which it was also an REM album, which is how I know that word. I'm also the co-host of Data Driven and a co-host of Impact Quantum. But one of the other things that I think I'm known for, kind of, sort of, is VR, right? Not because I haven't really done anything with VR and meaningful in a couple of years now. And even then, wasn't quite a bit because I just always got the sense that technology wasn't quite there. I always got the sense that there's something missing. Now, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you know that Apple has produced has come out with their headset, which they are making sure they're calling it spatial computing. And if you look, let me share my screen. And I've often said that it's not until Apple enters a market that things really start moving. And I think that if you just look at the memes, oh, there I am. There's me from the past. But if you just look at the memes that have come out here in the last couple of days, kind of making fun of VR, AR, XR, spatial computing, I think is what Apple wants to call it. And I think it's no coincidence that Apple has chosen the term spatial computing. There I am. I'm behind the. There I am. Hello. I don't think it's a coincidence that Apple has chosen very intentionally the term spatial computing, just for the simple fact of the matter. AR, virtual reality, mixed reality, has been trying to get some kind of. I first played with a VR headset in the early 90s, shortly after the Lawnmower Man came out in theaters, and you have this moment, and I say this with some experience, right? I worked with smartphones, Windows Mobile, with Handspring and the Palm Pilot clones, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that I think people don't quite is mainstream. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. Some are obvious, some are not obvious. The obvious is that their marketing is second to none. There's also the fact they may wait to enter a market. I myself was very of just how there we go. Am I streaming? Oops, connection lost. Reconnect. That's wonderful. Oh, we're back. I think back. Let me go back to the screen resolution that we were at before. I myself was very skeptical of the Apple Vision Pro. I think that whatever they want to call it, because it's $3,500. This is not a trivial amount of money. However, you go at the time dollars for a phone, and the fact that this many years later, of table stakes, if you will, Oops, let me back. Come on. There I am. If you go back in time to when the iPhone launched, it was 3 times the price of comparable equipment, comparable phone. And arguably, you can say they really weren't comparable phones. But I mean, if you wanted a large, relatively, nice look available, I don't think at the time there were kind of expensive smartphones, uh, and then there were also the carriers would get kind of cut the cost, so it wasn't. And a lot of people didn't think that there was a market that, as we look at, $1,000 and $1,200 phones, apparently there is a market, and quite a large one. So while when I heard the price of the Apple Vision Pro, I was very skeptical. I also know that Apple knows a thing or two about consumer retail electronics, and they probably run the numbers. And this is um, you're paying for a premium product. You're paying for the premium Apple. I mean, you're paying for the logo, basically. There's part of that. But they also know experience in VR, you're going to be turned off for that platform for the foreseeable future. Um, so I think it's very clever of them. It's also very clever of them to refer to it as spatial computing. And spatial computing is a great term, for the simple fact that uh, um, it doesn't have the weight of failure, I guess, or the scent of failure that other platforms do. So if you look at kind of like the memes that are out there on LinkedIn and social media, headsets have been out for decades, right? Meta has had their Oculus Quest out for many, many years. But if you look at just the sheer kind of content of the memes that are out there around VR, um, it's definitely Apple has captured the public spirit, the public zeitgeist, if you will, around this technology. And that's exactly what I expected them to do. Now, the only thing up in the air is this the right time for VR, AR, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know, right? I have seen it was just around the corner, right, for a number of years. I've been through this a couple of times. I remember VRML, which was basically a kind of a virtual reality, but for the web. Those stood for virtual reality markup language. I've seen a lot of starts. I've seen a lot of fits, starts and fits, and kind of fizzles. I think that Apple, if anyone can make this work, it's them. Because the idea of tablet PCs or tablet computers was nothing new. When the iPad came out, it became mainstream. And I say this as someone who originally was a tablet PC MVP at Microsoft, if you can imagine, right? Because they had in 2004, 2005, something that was, not perfect, but it was pretty, functionally the same thing as the iPad. There were practical drawbacks, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is that it wasn't really mainstream until Apple went into it, and then it was everywhere, right? And you had those first few months where people making fun of the name. Just look it up yourself. But then people stopped making fun of the name when it became a successful product. So it fascinates me just how consistent this has been. This is consistent as every other version of Windows is terrible. Um, and I think it's amazing how we're seeing this, Meta, Facebook, whatever they're called. They've had headsets out for the better part of 3, 4 years. Like the Quest, I think the Quest was really kind of their first once they bought the system. So I had a Quest 2, now I have a Quest 3, and I enjoy them. I think they're a great platform. I think Meta is struggling in terms of how do you make this into a platform? How do you make this into an app store? What's the developer experience, right? And granted, I have not had a lot of time to kind of dive deep into that, but it does seem like there's there's a story there that I don't think they've really fully fleshed out. It should be um, interesting to see how Apple handles the developer experience because they have a legion of loyal iOS developers. And how will they be able to take that, leverage that existing platform, and put it into this, which you know they will, right? Apple is as much an ecosystem company as they are a technology company. For instance, my Fitbit is getting a little long in the tooth. I think it's pushing like 6, 7 years old now, and I love the Apple Watch. I would love to get an Apple Watch. However, I can't get it to work with the iPad. So I'd have to switch my main phone back to iOS, which for reasons long and varied, I don't like being stuck on one platform. So I have Android phones, tablets, Windows PCs, Linux PCs. I kind of like having all these options. I have a Mac laptop now too. I, Apple is really going to drive this space going forward. They are not going to be the first entrant to market because they clearly aren't. They clearly weren't with phones. They weren't with tablets. With the desktops and PCs, maybe they were, but they really tend to come at this from a high position of strength in terms of, if you spend $3,500, you are in a certain income bracket. You've probably already bought into a lot of other parts of the Apple iOS ecosystem. So, but just the fact that they've been able to command the meme space pretty quickly, I think is a foreshadowing of where things are going to go. I think we're going to be looking at several years from now that, you know, of course, Apple would dominate this space. I think we're still in that phase of doubt, but I always think back to the video of Steve Ballmer, who was then CEO of Microsoft, when he first heard about the iPhone, and they were launching. Well, they were attempting to launch Windows Phone again. He laughed at it. Like there's a video out there. He laughed at the iPhone, and in his defense, pricing something at 2 to 3 times or more what the normal market entry point is sounds ridiculous, but the only company that can pull it off is Apple. I would also say, unlike phones, VR headsets, spatial computing, blah blah blah, isn't mainstream. It wasn't mainstream like the cell phone was in the early 2000s, where everybody had a phone. Granted, it cost a third of what that is. So I think they have a lot more leeway on the price point, and I think they've taken that. But just the idea that all the jokes are out there about it, I think is very telling. I think that a year from now there'll be another model. It'll be half the price. It'll have twice the power, twice the features, and they're going to dominate this space. I think it's also very telling that the mixed reality aspect of the Meta Quest 3 is really the differentiator. If you're playing fully like immersive experiences, games, or whatever, the Meta Quest 3 isn't really a marked difference above the two. Where it does differ is you have kind of this mixed reality thing where you could interact with the real environment inside the virtual environment. I think that has a lot of legs. I think we'll be referring to this as spatial computing, right? Because we don't call tablets iPads. I mean, we call tablets or iPads. We don't call them tablet PCs, right? I think that we don't really call it a smartphone per se. People will even refer to their Android phone as their iPhone, right? But it's not an iPhone, right? So I think we're seeing a lot of this type of thing here. So just the fact that they've dominated the meme space in such a short period of time since launch, I think bodes very well for Apple, right? And they are going to dominate yet another category of devices. So if you did also look at my feed, and I'm not just promoting my LinkedIn feed here, but Red Hat has a what they used to call sales kickoff. It's happening this week in Vegas. So hopefully, if you're going to be there, say hello. I might do a live stream or two from the lobby. They made it pretty clear: don't share some of this internal proprietary stuff with the web. But I would also add that If you're not already in AI, now's a good time to get into AI. And the other thing to really look into is kind of spatial computing and VR and what it takes to develop for that. That's something that's on my list of things. I don't have it here. So in case you're wondering, Frank, your desk is really messy. And yes, it is. And the monitors aren't on. Part of the reason why is because I am building out my own custom SAN out of some old desktop parts. I decided to keep that little PowerEdge server as a kind of a home lab, but this is going to be another part of my home lab. That's for VMs and stuff, but I'm going to have something that's just dedicated to storage, because what I found myself doing in kind of this new office setup where I have, whoop, there's the focus. There we go. I can kind of like go from machine to machine. I'll edit something here and I'll want to make sure it's saved to a central location. And I bought a bunch of hard drives. I found a bunch of hard drives from the move that were taken out of older machines. So I'm going to chain them together and do something cool with it. Fun story though. I actually managed to break because I was using one of those it was a SATA wire, but it was like had this weird bend to it, and it actually broke off the SATA connector on this thing. So I have mixed feelings because it's still a 4 terabyte red drive, basically designed for Manassas. NASA's not for molasses. But I have mixed feelings about putting critical data on something with a broken connector. I have noticed if I could tape it together, it does still work, right? It's just a question of what's my risk tolerance, or should I just get another duplicate of this and kind of raid them together? Um, and maybe. But in the process of all this, I've torn up a bunch of stuff. I've actually found out that that Dell case that you saw me pick up is way too small to fit all of this stuff. So I have another case that's even older PC that I got from Micro Center actually, and it has hard drive bays aplenty. So just a matter of finding the time to kind of take all the guts out and move it into this new frame. I haven't done something like that in about 15, 20 years. Wow. So that's why the desk is a bit messy. But with that, I'm going to end the stream because I got a lot to do today, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Apple's going to dominate this space too, or do you think that the trend line of AI, or not AI, the trend line of VR, AR, XR, spatial computing, do you think it's just going to go up and then fizzle again? Because in a very real sense, it is a solution looking for a problem to solve. Um, but those sometimes are my favorite technologies. So with that, I will end the stream and wish you a great day as I play the Frank's World logo. Outro.